Scoring a multi-million-dollar Marvel deal would be a dream come true for most actors, but some A-listers have reason to keep their distance. Don't expect to see any of these stars put on a cape or a mask anytime soon. Timothée Chalamet is a rarity. He's one of the only true movie stars of his generation, thanks in part to his choosiness about his roles. After his breakout turns in Call Me By Your Name and Little Women, he could have done a whole slew of high-paying but artistically flat films. Instead, Chalamet has carefully doled himself out to the public with projects like the two Dune movies, A Complete Unknown, and Wonka. One place you won't see Chalamet anytime soon is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and not necessarily because he has any specific aversion to Spider-Man or the Hulk. He's even publicly talked about his affection for certain superhero movies like The Dark Knight. But Chalamet got some important advice early in his career from none other than Leonardo DiCaprio, who urged the up-and-comer to stay away from two things: drugs and superhero movies. Avoiding those meant that Chalamet could build up his prowess as a box office draw and leading man without distraction, much like DiCaprio did with his early titles like Romeo and Juliet and Titanic. On Marvel films, the box office grosses can be high, but the actors don't necessarily become movie stars in the eyes of the public. Even Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth sometimes struggle to sell films in a post-Endgame world. Chalamet, on the other hand, has 2 Oscar nominations under his belt, and thanks to DiCaprio's advice, it's only a matter of time until the young star manages to secure a win. Long ago, Amanda Seyfried was a finalist for the role of Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy. She lost the part to Zoe Saldana, and nowadays, it's highly unlikely that Seyfried would join the MCU, or any other massive franchise for that matter. Back in 2015, Seyfried told late-night host Seth Meyers that her experience shooting a small appearance in Penn turned her off blockbuster work forever. Having to do wire work and green screen performances for that film was so disorienting and uncomfortable for her that she swore off doing anything similar ever again.
They're highly enjoyable. I love being an audience member.
Yes.
I just don't want to put on the suit.
I don't want to do... Yeah, I'm not a stunts person either.
Later on, Seyfried divulged that she had additional reasons for turning down the role of Gamora, like her prediction that the first Guardians of the Galaxy would be a box office flop, and her disinterest in putting on green makeup every day. Nothing about that sort of role held any interest for Seyfried, which made her extremely comfortable with her decision to turn down any chance to appear in the MCU. It hasn't seemed to impact her career in a negative way, as she's since had the opportunity to work with celebrated filmmakers including David Fincher, Paul Schrader, and the late David Lynch. Marvel has turned sitcom stars like Chris Pratt, Kumail Nanjiani, and Simu Liu into superheroes, but none of the 6 lead actors from the 90s classic Friends ever made the jump to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Jennifer Aniston in particular has made it very clear that she's not interested in joining the Avengers or X-Men anytime soon. In a 2019 interview, Aniston bemoaned the state of Hollywood filmmaking and its pivot away from grounded stories about everyday people. Part of this was the ubiquity of Marvel movies and their knockoffs, with Aniston noting that she had no interest in appearing in films heavy on green screen. Considering the projects that Aniston tends to choose, she's definitely put her money where her mouth is. With the exception of her supporting role in the fantasy comedy Bruce Almighty, she gravitates toward projects that are often outlandish but firmly still rooted in reality. As the MCU goes fully multiversal, the last bits of realism that the franchise had to offer seem to be fading away. The star of Apple TV Plus's The Morning Show definitely prefers a more intimate set to a sprawling soundstage that reaches multiple realities. It's now common knowledge that Emily Blunt was close to securing the role of Natasha Romanoff in Iron Man 2. When a contractual obligation to headline Gulliver's Travels for 20th Century Fox prevented her from taking the role in the action genre with titles like Edge of Tomorrow and Jungle Cruise, but she has yet to work in the MCU, and that's on purpose. Blunt has come out in recent years to declare that while she enjoys certain superhero movies, she's also exhausted with the genre. The flood of Marvel and DC projects in the last decade contributed to Blunt's lasting decision to stay away from superhero work. While Blunt did leave the door open to put her own spin on an especially interesting and unique character, she's made it clear that the MCU and its sprawling multimedia lore may not be an ideal home for her. Blunt's more recent films like Oppenheimer, Pain Hustlers, and Wild Mountain Time are all far removed from the heightened Marvel multiverse. With her artistic interests so clearly divorced from the aims of Marvel Chief Creative Officer Kevin Feige and company, Blunt won't be making up for losing Black Widow anytime soon.
No, I'm never left with a feeling of regret when I turn something down.
Jason Statham's fought a lot of different baddies in his time on the silver screen. That includes the scam artist of The Beekeeper, Dominic Toretto and his family, and even a couple of megalodons from the deepest pockets of the ocean. One place you won't be seeing Statham throwing fists anytime soon, though, is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Statham has been adamant for some time now that he has no interest in this specific franchise, or any other superhero fare for that matter. While he's often been vague about why he doesn't care for these films, Statham has opened up more in recent years that his attitude towards the MCU and its contemporaries all comes down to his cinematic idols. Statham's mold for action movies was carved out by various 80s icons, as well as older mid-20th century cool guy actors like Steve McQueen and Paul Newman. For Statham, these men epitomize the perfect leading men, and none of them needed a spandex outfit to fight in their respective features. While Statham respects the craft that goes into a typical superhero movie, his adherence to making features that evoke his movie star idols means that he has no interest in being a hero or a villain in the MCU. One of the most talented breakout stars of the 2020s so far, Paul Mescal used his acclaimed work in the miniseries Normal People to launch a growing film career that includes lauded performances in modern classics like All of Us Strangers and Aftersun. Though he's already dabbled in headlining blockbusters thanks to his work as the lead in Gladiator 2, don't expect him to swoop into the MCU anytime soon. Mescal was long rumored to play Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four: First Steps, but he recently revealed that he didn't feel like he was cut out to play a serialized role in the MCU. There are certain other franchise roles that Mescal might be interested in, but the actor admitted on the Happy Sad Confused podcast that superhero work wasn't on his radar.
I don't think it's it's not for me. I was kind of more like a Lord of the Rings guy.
It's not hard to see why Mescal would have that attitude. Signing a long-term multi-film contract for a potential MCU role would deprive him of the chance to make more of the grounded dramas that made him such a hot commodity in the first place. Keeping his schedule clear for more challenging work ensures that Mescal has set his artistic sights on more than just franchise fare. Although Viggo Mortensen played Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings trilogy at the dawn of the 21st century, don't get your hopes up about seeing him in any upcoming Marvel tentpoles. While he was rumored back in 2012 to be playing Doctor Strange in Thor: The Dark World, Mortensen revealed in 2021 that he'd had a distrust of superhero roles ever since he turned down the part of Wolverine in the first X-Men. The concept of playing the same character endlessly didn't sit comfortably with Mortensen. 3 years later, he reaffirmed these beliefs by noting that so many franchise movies were creatively empty that they offered him no real excitement or allure as an artist, unless he was truly set back by poverty, so he said. Mortensen had no interest in joining a brand like the MCU. Perhaps someday an MCU film will reach Mortensen's creative standard, but for now, it looks like he won't be saddling up for a role in Avengers: Secret Wars. Mortensen has certainly remained busy enough to not need the MCU. Between 2 Oscar acting nominations in the 2010s and a foray into directing in the 2020s. Both Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson kicked off their proper movie star careers by headlining the Twilight movies. The mega franchise propelled them to mega stardom, but immediately afterward, both actors opted to embrace indie art house titles rather than further tempos. While Pattinson eventually returned to larger properties with 2022's The Batman, Stewart has happily avoided such titles, save for the occasional Charlie's Angels. Stewart explicitly said in 2024 that she didn't have any Marvel movies on her creative horizons, as working on that kind of project sounded like an absolute nightmare to her. She also joked that the only way she'd ever appear in a Marvel movie would be if Greta Gerwig was directing. Given that Stewart has previously said that she was once told to hide her queerness if she ever wanted to get a role as high profile as a Marvel superhero, it's no wonder she has such disinterest in the MCU. At the end of the day, superhero movies simply aren't the kind of films that Stewart likes making. She'd much rather be in a rom-com like Happiest Season, or something truly bizarre and unique like Crimes of the Future. Attaching herself to the MCU just wouldn't be as fulfilling for her as playing Batman was for Pattinson. But if Gerwig were to helm the next X-Men movie, maybe Stewart would change her tune.
I think she should be the gay female Falcon Captain America.
The MCU has scored appearances over the years from several movie stars of previous eras like Robert Redford, Michael Douglas, Michael Keaton, and Glenn Close. In theory, award season darling Sean Penn could totally fit right in. But unlike even Douglas and Keaton, Penn's never really done genre movie work. Instead, he's ultra choosy over his film roles and opts to take grounded characters whenever possible. The other wrinkle to potentially getting Penn into the MCU is that he's been staunchly critical of the whole enterprise. Penn openly lambasted the franchise in 2021 for how much it had come to dominate the modern cinematic landscape. He also bemoaned how many actors had lost valuable years of their lives to multiple contractually obligated movies for Marvel. Since then, there's been no sign that Penn's changed his tune on the MCU. While Jessie Buckley was promoting a comedy film, Wicked Little Letters, with co-star Olivia Colman in 2024, an interviewer brought up the subject of MCU projects to both performers. Colman was absolutely giddy talking about her love for the franchise. After all, she begged her agent to land her a role in the MCU, which eventually happened in the series Secret Invasion. Colman's boundless enthusiasm made Buckley's reservations about ever being in a superhero movie or big blockbuster project more striking. Regarding Marvel movies, Buckley claimed that she had never actually seen one. Instead, what weighed on her mind was the morality of acting in such a production and how they affect the larger cinematic landscape. Between all of that and the fact that she simply doesn't have an interest in big-budget genre films, Buckley's indifference to an MCU acting gig is clear. After all, she's one of several rising stars in the 2020s who have become acclaimed actors and award-season darlings through challenging original indie projects, rather than just gravitating toward typical tentpoles. Her standout performances in I'm Thinking of Ending Things and Women Talking prove that she has what it takes to make a name for herself without becoming an on-screen superhero. It seems that Olivia Colman has enough enthusiasm about the MCU for both of them.
Let's party, shall we?
Marathon a handful of Ewan McGregor's best movies, and it quickly becomes apparent that the star of Trainspotting and Moulin Rouge is a man of immense talent. For many audiences, his contributions to the Star Wars franchise as young Obi-Wan Kenobi in the prequel trilogy are more than enough to make him a cinematic legend. Given his close connection to the galaxy far, far away, and his roles in other Disney movies like Christopher Robin and Beauty and the Beast, it might seem inevitable that Ewan McGregor would find himself a role in Disney's MCU. Too bad he previously shared conflicted comments over that very idea. Simply put, McGregor doesn't want to juggle another franchise. His artistic interests vary greatly, from film work to stage acting to directing to making Star Wars appearances. Being Obi-Wan in the prequels and Disney Plus spin-off was more than enough to satisfy any big-budget cinema cravings McGregor had. The concept of having a lengthy MCU gig devour more of his time, especially when he's already so comfortable with Star Wars, just doesn't sound appealing to him. While he left the door open by essentially saying never say never, it's clear McGregor isn't itching to say hello there to the new Avengers.